Hello and welcome back to Bitcoin and Tech Wealth Edge with Hodler Ranch. Today we're going to be discussing the final objection that people have towards Bitcoin, and that is lack of acceptance. If you haven't seen the first 6 that you see listed here on the screen, I highly recommend going back and watching those so you can get a complete picture on the most common reservations people have towards Bitcoin. So today we're talking all about lack of acceptance of Bitcoin, or so they say. We're going to cover 4 different reservations that people have, 4 different areas here. The first is limited consumer awareness, second being limited merchant adoption, and then regulatory uncertainty, and then finally the complexity of integration. So let's dive right in. We'll tackle these one by one. The first reservation there when it comes to lack of acceptance is the consumer awareness. In 2017, when I first got into Bitcoin, 80% of the world didn't even know what Bitcoin was, let alone that you could have payments and apps and everything else that goes along with the ecosystem that we have today. But what you'll notice is the trend has changed. Certainly today, everyone's heard about Bitcoin at least. And now you have 25% of consumers that are aware that you can make Bitcoin payments with wallets and how that actually works. So a quarter of the population is actually participating and understanding that. And that's up from 15% just 2 years ago. The next would be, let's counter the limited merchant adoption. So a lot of people say, well, it's not accepted anywhere, so it's never going to be anything other than a store of value. And I'm going to tell you that there's over 15,000 businesses that now accept Bitcoin. If you go to the btcmap.org, you'll actually see a very user-friendly site that shows no matter where you're at, you can pull up and it'll show you all the places around you in the surrounding area that accept Bitcoin as payment. There's also large companies, like it has reached large institutions now. We have Microsoft, AT&T, PayPal, all integrating Bitcoin. Tesla has integrated it. You have the entire nation of El Salvador that's integrated it right down to every McDonald's location there. And then more importantly here stateside, we've had Steak and Shake. Shout out to Steak and Shake. They're now my favorite fast food burger steak joint due to the fact that they accept Bitcoin. Their CEO spoke at the Bitcoin conference this past year. You can go right on in on their touch screen and it says, Bitcoin, and it's very easy, and there's a fraction of fees paid that you would pay with associated with credit cards. So I expect the trend to continue to see more and more companies starting to integrate it. Again, relatively new. We're on our 16th year, so again, Bitcoin I like to say is a teenager now behind the wheel. It's not a toddler, but it's not a full-grown adult yet either. But it's trending in the right direction. It's adulting very nice. And then countering regulatory uncertainty. So as I mentioned before, El Salvador has it. I was down there last year. You can go into any business and it's already integrated. You can use Bitcoin at any place you go to. It's a clear uptake in usage. And then, admittedly, though, as governments become more crypto and Bitcoin friendly, you're going to see clearer regulation around that. Again, the politics, it always lags behind, right, in a sense. So, the technology is quick. We have new iterations coming out every day. Technology's coming at us at a very rapid pace. Bitcoin is growing at a rapid pace. That doesn't necessarily mean that the lawmakers and people that are, well established and entrenched in the fiat system are going to be as quick to understand it and then adapt and then change laws. Let's not forget that until we had the current administration put together a crypto committee that's hopefully going to make changes, the most we've ever heard on regulatory action was there were 2 paragraphs mentioned in 2014 in the IRS tax code. And we all know how incredibly long, boring, and complex our tax code is here in the United States. There's only 2 paragraphs in there, and it treats it as property. So it's basically treating it like a house, which makes it hard to buy a cup of coffee if it's treated as property for tax purposes. So again, clearer regulation is going to help tremendously, and I believe we will see that soon. I know that can't come soon enough to many. And then countering complexity of integration. I'll just say that there are a lot of companies out there that are doing great work behind the scenes that you've probably never heard of. Companies like BitPay and companies like Strike. Strike helped introduce Nayib Bukele in El Salvador to Bitcoin. That, you know, folks from El Salvador that are working here, that are sending back remittances, were getting just raked over the coals in high fees. Like to Western Union money, they would take up to like 40% of what they were sending, which is ridiculous, especially to those that are really struggling to get by. So it was awesome that Strike was able to come in and integrate right away. Again, for next to nothing as far as costs go. And these simplified tools are just going to make it easier and easier for small businesses. Like you could throw a Bitcoin widget up of BitPay or several others on a website right now and begin to take money in Bitcoin. Last thing I want to point out, and this is very important. This is, I believe, is the overarching reason as to why folks feel that there's a lack of acceptance towards Bitcoin. And this is something you might not have been aware of. And if you have a chance, dive into this. But I just want to give you like the 30,000 foot view of what's known as Gresham's Law. In other words, it's known as bad money drives out the good money. And what does that mean? That means that people tend to hoard the good money, right? They'll spend the bad money. And what's the bad money in this case? Well, it's the money that's constantly being losing its purchasing power, which is our fiat system, your dollars, euros, any currency that is printed by a government, right? So because of that, people will tend to spend that quickly. You look at countries where hyperinflation happens, you see this happen all around the world, in certain countries where people are literally, wives will take the husband's paycheck in the morning and run and just try to buy groceries with it before the afternoon because prices are moving that quickly, right? So again, you're going to spend the bad money and hold on to the good money. How many of you have ever held on to $2 bills you got from the bank, right? I have. Anyway, eventually, once we reach a tipping point that the currency has been debased so significantly around the world and everyone is aware of that and people are educated on Bitcoin, then you're going to see Bitcoin being, that's what we call a hyper Bitcoinization world. You're going to see that eventually. Whether that takes 5 years or 50 years, I don't know. But I can tell you that we're trending towards that, and that is inevitable that we will be there. And eventually it'll be accepted everywhere. But until then, Gresham's Law is definitely at play when it comes to spending of Bitcoin. Because why would you want to spend something that on average is gaining 40 to 60% per year? It's outperforming every other asset, every other stock, everything else in the market the past 16 years. Again, that is another reason why I'm excited about Bitcoin and its future. Also, I'm going to leave you with one last thought here. The Bitcoin treasury companies. Many of you may have heard of this, and I have done a lot of videos on these treasury companies. There's now over 175 publicly traded companies that are taking their dollars, and rather than buying back stock or paying a dividend, they're going ahead and just putting their treasury into Bitcoin. Why? Because of that annualized return. So it's a speculative attack on a degrading dollar while you have an appreciating Bitcoin unit of account. So because of that, that's a big reason why I started my company and this website, which is, you can find out more at bitcoinwealthedge.com. Again, that's bitcoinwealthedge.com. And you can see I have a live real-time data dashboard that is showing exactly what the top 50 companies are doing when it comes to Bitcoin treasuries. I have over 45 different key metrics with that as well. And yeah, like I said, it's updated in real time, and there's a lot of other good information. I write a blog on there, and I even have some merch up there as well. We get into tech, AI, all kinds of things. We run the gamut here on Bitcoin and wealth. So thank you again for joining. I hope this 7-part series has been beneficial. If you could, please like and subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.